welcome Carrie Ray Shamel.
Hey everybody, so my name's Carrie Ray, and I wanted to tell a story about second chances. So I think at any point in somebody's life, they want to be a celebrity, whether it be a local celebrity, a town celebrity, or a worldwide celebrity. I think it's something to aspire to, or at least maybe that's in my hopes and dreams. So a few years ago, my husband and I had the wonderful opportunity of traveling to Italy, and we stayed in the Piedmont region, which I would describe being like you'd picture Tuscany, but many less tourists and many less Americans, which is a win-win in my opinion. So we stayed at a vineyard. It was an agroturismo, so a vineyard that allowed people to stay there. And I remember driving up to the vineyard on this rolling hill, and we get to the vineyard, and there's the little hotel area you stayed in, and then the home where the family lived who owned the vineyard. And the woman who owned the vineyard came out running to greet us. Her name was Annalisa. And she promptly told us that any of the wine left in the tasting room at the end of the day, we were allowed to drink, which to our excitement, we got nicely drunk that night on the veranda of the hotel. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful location, just rolling hills and vineyards everywhere you could look. So the next morning, we were out and about just exploring the area, and we came back around lunch back to the place we were staying. And to my surprise, at the house that the folks owned, I saw this older woman, quite older, elderly, in fact, reaching out one of the windows and just handing out plates of food to Annalisa and her children and her husband and anyone who worked on the vineyard, which is a very touching moment. So when I saw Annalisa later in the day, I said, "Who was that old lady like passing out the food?" And she said, "Oh, that's my granny." She said, "My granny grew up in this vineyard. It, was generationally owned families and families owned it, and granny just likes to contribute. She's 91, but she still does her part." I've always loved old people. So I said to Annalisa, I said, "Can I interview your granny?" And she had this look of like shock and awe on her face. She's like, "You want to interview my granny?" Like, it was just a very odd request for one of her innkeepers. So she's like, "Well, let me ask her." And so I was really excited. I was like, wow, this would be so interesting to interview this old woman who lives in Italy. So the next day came, and we went about on a little hike in the Italian countryside, and I never saw Annalisa that day. And we stayed another night. I think we probably got drunk again on the free wine there. And the next day we woke up, and it was the last day. We were leaving that morning, and we got up and we went into the breakfast room where it was just, you could fill yourself up for the day. There was all sorts of fruits and Italian cakes and cheeses and the best espresso I've ever had. And we'd already packed up our room, and I said to my husband, I was like, "Oh, I guess I missed my chance to interview Granny. I was so excited." And he's like, "Oh, well, next time." Okay, that was like 10 years ago. Like, we seldom went back to Italy. So next time I was like, no, it's really sad. When all of a sudden Annalisa comes running in the room, and she saw us, and her face lit up, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you haven't left." And I was like, "Oh, okay, we're still here." And she said, "Granny would love to be interviewed by you if you're still interested." And I was like, "Oh, very much so." She's like, "Yesterday, Granny spent all this time. She got her hair done. She pulled out her best dress. She was calling all of her relatives and friends saying, 'An American girl wants to interview me.'" So we came out of the breakfast room, and there comes Granny down the stairs wearing a very nice dress. Her hair is all curled and like some big earrings. And, I think she has a little cane. And we go in the tasting room, and she didn't speak a word of English. So her granddaughter, Annalisa, had to translate for her. But about 2 hours later, I learned about like her crushing grapes with her feet, and her husband going off in the war and having a really hard time coming back, having to hitchhike and take multiple trains, and what it was like to see the wine industry change. It was just really, really touching. And so Annalisa sent us off with a bottle of special wine that was named after her grandmother that I still haven't drank. And Annalisa and I ended up keeping in touch. I actually got one of her wines imported here to Daedalus, a plug for the wine shop Daedalus. And we'd email and send each other Christmas cards. And I'll never forget the day that she emailed me and said, I'm really sorry to tell you this, Carrie Ray, but my granny has passed away at the age of 94. But thank you so much for giving her that day. She talked about it for her remainder years. Thank you for making her a celebrity for that one day. So I think that was her second chance to be a celebrity. So thank you.